I want to start with the thing that broke the trust, because everything that followed was a consequence of it. It was a Wednesday evening in late October. The kind of evening where the house smells like dinner, and it should feel like home. I was coming in from a late meeting, my heels still on, my laptop bag on my shoulder, already mentally drafting the next morning's agenda. My husband Deshaun was in the living room. His phone was on the arm of the couch. He picked it up and put it face down when he heard me come through the door. He had never done that before. I noticed it the way you notice a change in someone's breathing in a quiet room. Not dramatically. Just a shift that registered somewhere below conscious thought and sat there. My name is Simone. I am 38 years old. I have been married to Deshaun for 7 years, and for most of those 7 years I have been the person in our relationship who understood numbers and money and security in a way Deshaun never particularly wanted to. I am a vice president at a financial services firm. I manage a portfolio of $240 million. I am, by every professional measure, somebody. Deshaun is a consultant, good at his work, well-liked by clients, proud in the specific way of a man who grew up with very little and has built what he considers a comfortable life. What he sometimes forgets is that our comfortable life was built substantially on my income, my discipline, my credit, and my professional network. I had been watching him forget that for about 18 months. But the phone flip on Wednesday changed something. I am not impulsive. I do not make decisions in crisis. I am a woman who runs financial models before she acts, who considers variables, who builds scenarios. So I built one. What if I told Deshaun I had lost everything? Not in a breakup conversation. Not in anger. What if I constructed a credible professional catastrophe and told him it was real, and then watched what he did next? Not to trap him. To know. There is a difference between a trap and a revelation. A trap requires deceit towards someone innocent. A revelation simply removes the comfortable performance of who someone pretends to be. I wanted to see Deshaun without the performance. I called my best friend Kezia that night. I have an idea, I said. Kezia Anita Boateng was 41, Ghanaian American, a corporate strategist who had spent 15 years helping companies figure out what they actually were beneath what they presented themselves to be. She was also the person who had said to me, 14 months earlier, in a voice that carried the specific weight of something held too long. I think Deshaun is spending time with someone. I had not asked her to elaborate. Not because I didn't want to know, but because I wasn't ready to receive information I couldn't act on cleanly. I had said, I'll handle it when I'm ready. Kezia had nodded. She understood me. Now, on the phone, she listened to my plan with the focused silence of a woman running her own analysis. You want to simulate a professional collapse, she said. Complete. Believable. Devastating on paper. And watch what he does. Within 24 hours, I said. I want to see what a man does in the first 24 hours when the woman he married is suddenly worth nothing. You're not testing whether he loves you, Kezia said. No, I said. I'm testing whether he ever did. There's a difference. Another pause. You need it to be airtight, she said. If he has anyone he can verify with. He doesn't know anyone at my firm well enough to call. My HR contacts are personal relationships. My partners aren't in his circle. Your financial accounts. I'll move everything to a separate account before I tell him. Temporarily. So if he looks, the joint account shows almost nothing. Kezia was quiet for a moment. This is the most methodical thing I have ever watched you do, she said. I learned from the best, I said. What do you expect him to do? I thought about it honestly. Not what I hoped. What I expected. I expect him to panic, I said. And I want to see what the panic produces. And if he proves you wrong, she said. I sat with that question for a long time. Then I will spend the rest of my life grateful that I was wrong, I said. And I will tell him everything. And he will either forgive me or he won't, and we will rebuild from honesty. And if you're right, then I will already have moved everything into my name before it matters, I said. Are you enjoying the story so far? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because trust me, there's a lot more story to be told. Without wasting much time, let's continue. I spent 3 days preparing. Not impulsively, carefully, the way I prepare every scenario that has significant consequences. First, The financial architecture. I transferred the bulk of our liquid assets, my savings, my investment accounts, the emergency fund, to a new solo account at a different institution. What remained in our joint account was $4,700. Enough to look real. Not enough to feel safe. Second, the professional story. I called my colleague and close friend Martin, who understood immediately what I needed and why, and asked no questions I didn't want to answer. We constructed the scenario together, a regulatory investigation triggered by a client's undisclosed activity. The kind of thing that, in my industry, could freeze an executive's assets and put them on mandatory leave pending review. Martin would corroborate if Deshawn called him. Third, the supporting documentation. Kezia drafted a regulatory notice letter using formatting she'd sourced from public compliance templates. It looked real. It referenced my firm by name. It cited a specific investigation number. It stated I had been placed on administrative leave effective immediately and that my firm-related assets were under preliminary review. I read it 3 times. Even knowing it was constructed, it made my stomach move. On Saturday morning, while Deshawn was making coffee in the kitchen and I was still in our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and I prepared my face. Not for performance, for truth. The truth is that I was scared. Not of the experiment. Of what it might confirm. I had built 7 years of a life around a man. I had trusted him with the interior version of me, the one that wanted stability, that needed to feel chosen, that still carried the specific insecurity of a woman who had been told early in life that she was too much. I did not want to be right about Deshawn. I walked into the kitchen. I handed him the regulatory letter. "Sit down," I said. "I need to tell you something." He read it. I watched his face. His first expression was confusion. His second was something I cataloged carefully before it settled into what he showed me next. The third expression was the one I had been afraid I would see. Not grief. Not protective fury. Not the face of a man who immediately wants to find a solution for his wife. Calculation. The first hour, Deshawn asked 3 questions. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "What do we do?" Not, "How can I help?" He asked, "How long will the leave last?" Then, "Are the joint accounts affected?" Then, after a pause that lasted long enough for me to understand what he was actually processing, "What about the mortgage payment next week?" I answered each question steadily. The leave was indefinite pending investigation. The joint accounts were separate from the investigation, but my personal income was frozen. The mortgage was due in 11 days, and I did not know how we would cover it. I watched him absorb each answer. He nodded. He drank his coffee. He said, "I'm sure it'll get sorted." He went to the living room and watched television. I went back to the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed and felt something move through me that I want to name accurately. It was not surprise. It was the specific grief of having your worst suspicion confirmed so completely that even being right offers no satisfaction. Kezia called at noon. "First hour," she said. He asked about the mortgage, I said. A pause. "Not about you," she said. "Not about me," I said. By hour 4, Deshawn had made 2 phone calls in the back room that he did not tell me about. I know this because I had, the previous week, quietly set up call logging on our home router, not his personal phone, just the calls made through our home network, which his laptop used. The logs showed 2 outgoing calls. One to a number I recognized as a friend from his college years. One to a number I did not recognize. He came back into the living room at 4:15 and announced he had a work dinner he'd forgotten to mention. "Tonight?" I said. "Yeah, client thing." "Sorry, babe." He kissed my forehead. "You'll be all right?" I had just told him our financial life was in crisis. He was going to dinner. "Sure," I said. He left at 5:30. I called Kezia. "He's gone to dinner," I said. She was quiet for a long moment. "I'm coming over," she said. Kezia arrived at 6:45 with food she'd picked up and the specific energy of a woman who has been right about something for 14 months and is not enjoying being right. We ate. We did not discuss what was happening in the style of crisis. We discussed it the way we discussed everything, analytically, specifically, without performance. "The unknown number," Kezia said. "I ran it," I said. "It came back to a landline registered to a property management company. Which tells me nothing definitively." Or it tells you he's looking at apartments, Kezia said. The sentence sat between us. I had thought it. Hearing it spoken was different. He came home at 10:30, I said. From a work dinner that started at 6. 4.5 hours. I was awake. How was he? Fine, I said. Normal. He asked if I had heard anything more from the firm. He asked about the investigation? He asked whether it was getting resolved, I said. He asked whether there was a timeline. Kezia looked at me across the table. He's managing a timeline, she said. That's my read too, I said. Here is what I mean by that. A man who is worried about his wife asks how she is doing. A man who is worried about his own circumstances asks about timelines. Deshawn's questions had never been about me. They had been consistently, specifically about the financial situation. How long, how much, when would it be over? Tell me about the 14 months, I said. What you know. Kezia looked at the table. I saw him, she said. About a year ago. At a restaurant I was passing. He was with a woman, not a client dinner, Simone. The way they were sitting. She paused. I took a photograph. I kept it because I didn't know what else to do with it. Do you still have it? She pulled out her phone. She placed it on the table between us. I looked at the photograph. I looked at it for a long time. Deshawn. A woman I did not know. A restaurant I recognized. Our 7th anniversary was the week of that photograph. I picked up my coffee. I drank it. I set it down. Thank you for keeping it, I said. By hour 18 of the 24, I had confirmed 3 things. First, the unknown number was not a property management company. Kezia's contact at a data research firm ran a deeper search. The number was a Google Voice account registered to a name, a woman I will call by the initial T. Second, Deshawn had withdrawn $1,400 in cash from the joint account the morning after I told him about the investigation. The joint account I had intentionally left with $4,700, specifically to see what he would do with it. He had withdrawn $1,400 the next morning before I was awake. I discovered this when I checked the account notifications on my phone at 7 a.m. on Sunday, the morning of hour 18. Third, he had revised his password on our shared streaming service account, which I only noticed because my automatic login failed and prompted me to re-enter credentials. A small thing, but a man who is scared for his wife does not spend hour 18 updating streaming passwords. A man who is beginning to separate does. I sat with those 3 facts at the kitchen table while Deshawn slept. I thought about 7 years. The apartment before the house. The vacations. The Sunday mornings that had felt, for a while, like exactly what I had been working toward, the specific domesticity of a person who grew up in uncertainty finally arriving somewhere safe. I thought about the woman in the photograph. Our anniversary week. I thought about what 14 months of awareness had cost Kezia, the weight of knowing something and not knowing how to hand it to me without breaking something. I thought about the question she had asked me, what if you're right? I was right. And right felt like standing in a room you spent years building and discovering that one wall was always hollow. I called Martin. I'm ready to end the scenario, I said. But not yet. I need to see what he does when I tell him it's over. Over as in the investigation resolved? Yes, I said. I want to see what his face does when he thinks the money is back. I told Deshawn at noon on Sunday that the regulatory situation had been resolved. Cleared. It had been a clerical error in the client's filing, not my fault, not an ongoing investigation. My leave would end Monday. My accounts were unfrozen. I watched his face for the third expression. It came immediately. Not relief exactly, something brighter than relief. Something I would describe as the specific illumination of a man who has been calculating around a problem and has just been told the problem does not exist. He hugged me. I knew it would work out, he said. I told you. He had not told me. He had told me he was sure it would get sorted for hours into the crisis before going to a 4.5-hour dinner. I'm so relieved, he said. I let him hold me. I noted the quality of the hug, the warmth in it now that had been absent on Saturday. The specific tenderness of a man who has just had a financial threat removed from his immediate future. I stepped back. Me too, I said. He made lunch. He was bright and easy. The version of himself he presented when things were good, the version I had fallen in love with and had been chasing for 18 months as it became inconsistent. After lunch, while he was washing dishes, I said, I need to ask you something. Sure, he said. The $1,400 you withdrew yesterday morning. From the joint account. His back was to me. I watched his shoulders. Oh yeah, he said, without turning. I had to pay a guy back. Cash thing I forgot to mention. Who? I said. Martin from my gym, he said. You don't know him. I did know a Martin from his gym. I also knew that the Martin from his gym had been in Atlanta since the previous Thursday. I knew this because Deshaun had told me so himself 2 weeks earlier. Of course, I said. He finished the dishes. I went to the bedroom. I opened my laptop. I had one final thing to do. Kezia came over that Sunday evening. Not invited, she called and said she was coming, and I said yes, because I needed someone who already knew the full shape of what I was dealing with and would not require me to build the context from scratch. She brought wine. We sat at the kitchen table while Deshaun was in his home office. He withdrew $1,400, she said. The morning after the crisis began. And it's not going to Martin from the gym because Martin from the gym has been in Atlanta since Thursday. Kezia turned her wine glass. What do you think he did with the cash? I said. That's my current working theory. A month of something. An apartment deposit. An emergency fund he was building. Kezia looked at me. Simone, she said carefully. I need to tell you something else. The photograph wasn't the only time. I looked at her. 6 months ago, she said. I saw his car parked outside a building in the Meridian district. 3 times in 1 week. I know the building, a friend of mine lives there. I didn't ask who he was visiting. She held the second piece of information out to me the way you hold something fragile, carefully, with both hands. I breathed. You've been carrying this for a long time, I said. I didn't know how to give it to you, she said. You seemed fine, I said. You seemed fine, she said. And I didn't know if fine was real or if fine was armor. Armor, I said. It was armor. She nodded. We sat quietly for a moment. The test worked, she said finally. Not the way you hoped. No, I said. Not the way I hoped. What now? I thought about the accounts I had moved. The money already in my name. Vivian, my attorney, whom I had called Thursday of that week just to reopen a file she'd started for me 2 years earlier when I had briefly considered this conversation and then decided against it. Now, I said, I stopped pretending I don't know what I know. I finished my wine. I'm going to tell him tomorrow, I said. All of it. The test. What I found. What you know. I'm going to give him one honest conversation before the legal process begins. Why? Kezia said. Because I was honest enough to test him, I said. I owe him the honesty of knowing why I'm leaving. Deshaun sat across from me at the kitchen table on Monday morning. I had asked him to sit before he left for work. He sat. He looked at me with the comfortable ease of a man whose financial world had been restored the previous day and who believed the difficult portion of the weekend was behind him. I set 3 things on the table. Kezia's photograph. The call log from our home router. The joint account statement showing the $1,400 withdrawal on Sunday morning. I said, I need you to understand something before I tell you what these mean. The regulatory investigation was not real. I constructed it. I constructed it because on Wednesday evening you turned your phone face down when I came through the door, and something in me understood that I needed to know who you actually were when the money was gone. Deshaun looked at the 3 items on the table. I am going to tell you what I found, I said. And then I am going to give you the opportunity to tell me the truth. Not a version. Not a managed account. The truth. I walked him through everything. The calculation in his first expression. The questions about timelines rather than about me. The dinner that lasted 4.5 hours. The $1,400 withdrawal. The unknown number. The photograph. The Meridian district. He listened without interrupting. Which was itself information a man who is innocent would have interrupted. A man who has something to defend stays very still and waits to hear how much you actually know. When I finished, the room was quiet. Are you going to deny any of it? I said. He looked at his hands. No, he said. Something in me that had been braced for 7 years, the specific bracing of a woman who has been waiting to hear the truth she already knows released. Not relief. Just the specific unburdening of no longer pretending. How long? I said. 14 months, he said. I had known the number before he said it. I want you to know, I said, that I am not angry. I am clear. And clear is better than angry for what comes next. I stood up from the table. Vivian will be in touch, I said. Here is how it ends. Not dramatically, clearly. The way things end when a woman has been building her exit with the same discipline she built everything else. The divorce was filed within the week. Vivian, my attorney, 52 years old, with the specific precision of a woman who had spent 25 years in family law and never once lost a client more than they were owed, moved through it with efficiency and without sentiment. Deshawn did not contest the significant financial provisions. I think some part of him understood that contesting would require his attorney to discover exactly how much I had already documented, and that discovery would be worse for him than the settlement. He moved out within 30 days. Into an apartment in the Meridian district, the building Kezia had seen his car outside 6 months earlier. I noted this with the flat acknowledgement of a woman who has no more surprises left in a situation. Here is what I kept. The house in my name, which it had always primarily been given the mortgage, was drawn against my income. The investment accounts, already separated before the conversation. My professional reputation, which had never been in question. The portfolio of $240 million I managed continued without interruption. My firm's senior partners sent flowers when the divorce was announced, which told me the firm had been aware of something I had not yet named and was relieved I had named it. And Kezia. I kept Kezia. I will keep her until one of us is no longer here. She had carried 14 months of difficult knowledge to protect me from receiving it before I could act on it correctly. That is not a small thing. That is the specific love of a person who understands the difference between giving someone information and giving someone information at the right time. I am 38 years old. I have a portfolio of $240 million. I have a house that is mine, a career that is mine, and a clarity about what I require from the people in my life that I did not have before I sat on the edge of a bed on a Saturday morning and prepared my face. Deshawn taught me something, ultimately. He taught me that a man who turns his phone face down when you walk through the door is already telling you everything you need to know. I just needed the 24 hours to confirm it. Moral: the person who loves you for who you are stays when you have nothing. The person who loves you for what you have reveals themselves the moment you appear to lose it. Both answers are information, and information, used correctly, is always power. The end. If you made it to the end of this story, thank you for watching. I hope it stayed with you and gave you something to think about. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe and be part of the journey. There's so much more story still to come.